Welcome back to Beautifully Grounded. My name is Desiree for those of you who don't know me. Today is going to be day 3 of the 5-part series for Reclaim. Today is going to be shadow work. I have been so excited to do shadow work. It is my favorite part of the whole 5 days. I love doing shadow work. It may sound scary in the beginning, but it's not what you think. For shadow work, what is shadow work? So a lot of people get scared when they hear shadow work because they think like, oh, you're working with spirits, you're working with demons, you're doing this, you're doing that, but it's not that at all. It's a practice. Most people meditate and they ask their guides, their higher being, their higher self, to bring things within themselves forward that sometimes we don't like to face. These are going to be things that you don't want to face about yourself, whether you know them or not. So sometimes you know the things, but you never tried to work on them, and you know they're a problem, but you just haven't tried to fix them. And sometimes there are things that you didn't even realize that you did or you do. This is great for people who are trying to just find their more authentic self. This will make you look at parts of yourself that are not accepted. Sometimes we talked in the last video about consciousness and that little voice inside. If you haven't seen that, make sure you go check it out. But sometimes that little voice is speaking things and we're like, oh my gosh, why am I thinking that? Like, no, I don't want to think about that. Push that back, push it back. And this could be something that you may think is weird or something that you may be ashamed of. Shame plays a big part in your shadows. Shame, fear, all of those different types of emotions play big parts in your shadows because these are things we don't want to face. These are things we don't want to deal with. And a lot of time it's shame. Shame will bring people down because you're ashamed to express how you feel, how you think, because you think it's weird or it goes against societal norms. Shame will play a big part in this. But in order to get to that place where you are in a more positive space, mentally, health, in the physical world and the spiritual world, you have to have balance. You have to balance the light and the dark. Now the dark is that shadow side. And this is most of the time your most authentic self because these are things that come unconsciously a lot of times. So your fear comes unconsciously. Your pain comes unconsciously. Sometimes we have thoughts that come unconsciously. So these are the deeper, darker parts of ourselves that we have to bring to the light. And that way we can integrate these things. And it will give us more balance. Help us accept ourselves more. It will help us realize that we're not weird. Things aren't weird. It's just not accepted or not mentioned or not spoken about. They have a saying in the Wu collection. So they say all the time, don't fake it till you make it. What we tend to do in life is we put on personas. We act according to who we are with. And I'm just going to be real with you. We got our ratchet friends that we go and turn up. We do the most with. And then we got our more calm friends who we just go to just chill with. Everybody has different personas for the different groups of people that you're with. We create these personas to fit in instead of being our most authentic selves. And I did this for a long time. No matter what, whoever I was with, I would try to fit in with them because I don't like to not be accepted. I like to fit in. And a lot of times I would tell myself like, well, you're antisocial, you don't fit in. But in reality, I just made myself not fit in because I wasn't being myself. The only reason I didn't fit in is because I wasn't being authentic. With shadow work, what it helps you do is get a new sense of freedom. The sense of freedom that you get when you face your shadows is like a high. And it feels so amazing. You're like on cloud 9 after doing shadow work, after realizing these things, after accepting them, after seeing them for what they are. And acknowledging that yes, these are thoughts that I have, but these are not me. They don't define me. That some people will shame and guilt ourselves into shadows. So a lot of times we try to use guilt or shame as an excuse for sometimes the things that we do. Or we try to use that as motivation to do things when really we should just be motivated about it. So guilt-wise, as a mom, I would be like, well, I have to do this because I have kids, or I can't do this because I have kids. When really, it was just me. not wanting to do things, not being passionate enough about things, or trying to do things that I knew I wasn't passionate about, and then just trying to make up an excuse. And that will create a shadow, and that will, because I'm pushing back emotions, I'm pushing back my real feelings. Get so frustrated when people are like, oh, I'm only positive vibes, because when you do that, you're constantly pushing emotions back. Those will create shadows. Those shadows will grow and grow and grow, and then they will start affecting your life, your reality in the physical world. With shadows, they can actually hurt your confidence. We have what's called golden shadows. A golden shadow could be like, if people are constantly telling you like, you can really sing, and you're like, well, no, I don't really, I just sing to myself. I don't really, no, I don't like to do any of that. Like, girl, if people are telling you you can sing, then you can sing. Why don't you just take it as it is? And a lot of times we do that. We have people tell us like, oh, you're really good at this, or you should really do this. You're really great at this. And then we're like, well, yeah, all these people told me that, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't think it's for me. A lot of different things. And that is shadows coming up. Shadows of past trauma. Maybe you had something like that happen when you were younger, where you were really confident about something, and then somebody told you like, no, you can't do that. So now you struggle with that shadow because you haven't faced that. So now every time you gain recognition for something, you're like, okay, yeah, they told me that, but maybe somebody else thinks I'm not, or you just don't think you are, because your confidence has already been shattered. In the last video, I talked about, why is this my story? So that's what I mean when you have to face them. You have to figure out, like, why is this my story? Why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling this? And it could be an array of different things. It could be past trauma. It could be current situations. It can be physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, anything. You have to figure out why that feeling and why that thought is the way it is. It's going to be different for everybody, so you can't go in with expectations because this person said this is how it worked for them, or this person said this is how it worked for them, because it's going to be different. Everybody has been through different things, and everybody has faced different things. So you can't go in with expectations, and you have to be really ready to face it. Shadow work is... it depends on what it is, really. It depends. Every experience is going to be different, and you can do shadow work multiple times. It's not just like a one and done thing. I've done shadow work about 3 or 4 times now, and it's been something different every time for me. And you're going to have different emotions that come up. So if you're someone who is already in a very deep, dark space, shadow work would not be beneficial for you right now, because you're already in a negative space, and what you put in is what you're going to get out. So if you're going in already in a negative space, are you really going to be able to handle or face the shadows that come up? Because like I said, sometimes these will be things that we just don't want to face. We don't want to think about. When people have trauma, sometimes everybody handles it differently. When people have pain, everybody handles it differently. And we may have suppressed memories, suppressed issues that we just didn't want to think about. And if they come up, it can be a trigger for you. And so I definitely advise, if you're going to do shadow work, make sure you're in a good space. Make sure you're ready for those emotions. Make sure you're ready for those memories, all of these things to come up. It takes a lot of power and energy to be able to do this work. I can definitely tell you, it is so beneficial. The amount of freedom you feel, being able to speak your truth without feeling ashamed, without feeling embarrassed, is amazing. It was so great for me when I did this, because I'm a person who, I'm very submissive, because growing up, all I seen was, the only times I can remember being happy with both parents in the home, or both grandparents, because I did stay with my grandma for a while, was when the woman was submissive. And as a kid, you don't see everything. You don't get the full story, and that's understandable. You don't show everything to your kids. But in my eyes, those were the best times, because I had everything I wanted and needed. I had a happy home. But behind closed doors, those were very traumatic relationships for my grandmother and my mom at the time. So as a kid, those are the only times I remember being happy, is when the woman was submissive. So for me, when I became a mom, when I became a wife, I felt like that's what I had to do in order for my kids to live a happy life. because that's all I remember. But in reality, I was struggling. I was depressed. I was biting my tongue for things that I shouldn't have. And I wasn't very open and communicative with my husband. I would just hold things in and let it fester and then snap and then argue and then not solve anything because I'd still be mad and then I'd just get over it. Doing the shadow work helped me really find my voice in my relationship, because a lot of times, I don't know about other people, like I said, it's different for everybody, but for myself, I know there was a fear of speaking up because I also have abandonment issues. Shocker. My dad wasn't in my life. My uncle, who I was very close with, passed when I was young, so I felt like in a way he left me. And for a while I was kind of angry about that, like, yeah, he didn't choose to die, but I felt like, geez, he left me, like I have nobody. So I would fear, like, okay, well, if I say this, is he gonna get mad? Is he gonna leave? And I would take myself down a rabbit hole, a dark, 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 dark rabbit hole. Like, oh my gosh, he's gonna leave me. What am I gonna do? I don't have this in order. I don't have this in order. How am I gonna take care of my kids? And he's perfectly fine because I'm over here freaking out. And he's like, what's going on? Like, what is wrong with you? We just went and got something to eat and everything was fine. And now there's this. For me to be able to speak out instead of just letting these thoughts run in my head, it gave me freedom, it gave me peace of mind. And at the end of the day, I'm not ashamed to say what I feel because these are my genuine feelings, and no one should be ashamed of their feelings. No one. And a lot of times we are, because we're like, well, I feel bad because this person's gonna feel this way. No, you shouldn't, because that's your feelings and that's your emotions. And sometimes you hold things back from hurting people and you don't want to hurt people. But if it's someone who really loves you and wants to be in your life, they will understand where you're coming from. And yes, they can be mad, they can feel the way that they feel because those are their genuine emotions. But if it's really meant for that person to be in your life or be in with you on your journey, eventually you guys will be able to have a conversation about whatever you guys are feeling and be able to figure out what's going on and work it out. That's simple. If they aren't able to do that, then they aren't meant for you at that time. They aren't meant to be in your life. And this is family, friends, relationships, everything. Everything. You have to be very conscious of what energy is around you, and you have to be conscious of what energy you are giving to others. Is somebody draining your energy because they're constantly negative, or are they draining your energy because they don't support you? You have to be mindful of that, and you have to control that. Our energy is our own. Nobody can take that away from us, and nobody should be able to control that but you. So with the shadow work, like I said, it's a meditation. It is a guided meditation. They guide you into the meditation. They ask you to basically ease your mind, and then they go into the shadow work. So what they tell you to do is, when you are in this state of meditation, they want you to don't ignore any thoughts. Nothing is weird, I'm telling you. When I say I wrote down a lot of weird stuff, I wrote down a lot of weird stuff. Starting off, you have to figure out what shadow is coming forward for you. So like I said, I've done it 3 or 4 times now, and something different has come up every time. So this one kind of referenced to the first time I did shadow work, but there were different emotions. So when you're doing shadow work, you have to really pay attention to your emotions and how you're feeling, because it can be a whole different situation if you're feeling a different way. So the first time I did shadow work, I had a lot of, I cried for sure. I was very emotional, and I felt a lot of resentment. That is a total different story, but that's what I felt the first time, even though it was the same situation. But the second time, I felt more anger. I was angry. I didn't cry. I wasn't emotional. I was just angry. And I felt, I kept feeling like jealousy and shying away. Like, okay, so what are triggers that make you, that make this shadow, that make you more defensive when people talk to you about certain things? What makes you defensive about this shadow? So the jealousy and the shying away comes from, like I said, my relationship. I would be jealous because, you know, as a mom, we have to sacrifice and give up so much to be a mom, because I mean, we have to do appointments, we have work, we have the kids when they're sick and things like that. And most of the time, the dads are the provider, and I'm fine with that. And my husband is a great provider, and he's a great dad and everything. But for me as a mom, I felt like I had to be that super mom that had to do everything by herself. I grew up with a single mom, so that's all I know is how to do it yourself. And so a lot of times I would shy away and not ask for help. If I needed him to do something, if I needed him to help with something, I wouldn't ask. I would just do it myself. When in reality, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I really wish he would help. But I'm not saying anything, so he doesn't think anything is wrong. And so for me, it was a lot of jealousy of like, okay, well, he can still do whatever he wants. And I'm a mom, so I can't do everything I want. I can't do this and go here and do that. When reality was I could, I just wasn't asking. It was a trigger. Help. When I talk about being a mom, or when I talk about, like I said, we create personas. So I would definitely create a persona. When people would ask me about being a mom, I'd be like, oh, it's great. I love it, which I do. But I would also be like, yeah, I love keeping my kids all the time. I love being a stay-at-home mom. When in reality, I was like, I need to get the fuck out of this house. Ooh. I was like, I need to get out this house because I'm going to drive myself crazy. And so that's a trigger when I talk about being a mom, or when I talk about what I do. Now, when I talk about what I do, that's when it really would hit me. Because I used to have so many dreams and so many things that I did give up to be a mom and a wife. And so for me, it was like when people ask me what I do, I'm like, well, I feel like in my mind, like I don't do anything. Even though I'm a great mom, I'm a great wife, I do work and I also do my practice. And at first I would just be like, well, yeah, I just do this. My husband does this and that, but I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I just take care of my kids. But that would be so emotional for me in my mind, because I'm like, geez, you didn't do anything you wanted to do. You stopped your dreams, you stopped your goals. And after working on this shadow, I was like, when people ask me now, I'm like, oh, I'm a server. I'm happy to say that. At first I was ashamed. I used to be embarrassed, like, oh, well, I'm a server, so yeah. I used to be so embarrassed, because I used to be like, I don't know, I don't even know why I was embarrassed. Like, I make decent money as a server, so I mean, it doesn't even matter. As long as I'm providing for my kids and they're happy and everything is taken care of, it doesn't matter. But we live in a society where everybody's competing, like, oh, well, I do this and I got a degree and I did this, so everything else would make me feel so small. But now I'm like, oh, I'm a server part-time, and full-time I'm a witch. I don't care now. Like, I love what I do. I love being a server. I love my job. I mean, sometimes, yeah, I don't want to be there and they get on my nerves, but I still genuinely love what I do. It gets me out in front of people, and I just love being interactive, and I love the environment of where I work. And then my craft is like my life. Like, I love this. I genuinely love this, and it's rare that I am really passionate about something and I stick to it. But I love this. I love what I'm doing. I love doing my videos and getting the word out about it. I love all of this, so it's very exciting for me now to say that. The second part of the meditation is, where have you been holding back and shying away? Like I already said, my businesses and my dreams, I would push them to the side because I feel like, oh, well, you have to be a wife, you have to be a mom. When reality was, if I told him, oh, I want to do this or do that, he normally be like, okay, cool, what do we got to do to get there? But in my mind, I was like, no, he's going to think I'm trying to do too much. He's going to leave me. I was so dramatic, and my anxiety was horrible. This is a quick side note. For me to speak out on this, and for me to speak, I thought that was so weird for me. And I know other people go through it also, but for me, I was just like, I can't tell people about this. They're going to think I'm crazy if I tell them about my anxiety and how bad it used to be and how I used to think and things like that. But now, I don't have shame about it. I'm very open about it because it's something that I accept as a part of me and something that I've acknowledged and I've moved on from. I'm working on it still, obviously, but it's out there. I don't care. I don't mind it. Like, if you have questions, if you are suffering from anxiety or depression and you have questions, or like, definitely reach out to somebody. Like, it's hard to do it on your own. I can tell you that. It's so hard to do it on your own. So definitely speak to somebody, or if you like meditate, try to do something just to help yourself. Now, there was a second part to question. Well, the part 2 is giving your shadow like a name or a face, or just personifying it a little bit more so you could connect more to it. Now, for me, the first time I did shadow work, I had meditated like a day before that, and I kept getting this name Effie, E-F-I, Effie, 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 Effie. I kept seeing the name, I kept seeing the name, I kept hearing the name, and I was like, okay, who is this? Like, who is this? What does this mean to me? And at first it didn't make sense to me because I was like, I didn't get any like connection to feeling like an ancestor or anything like that. I didn't really feel any other connection. I just kept getting the name. So when I was doing the shadow work, and it was like, okay, put a name to it, put a face to it, personify it, connect to it. Effie, Effie, Effie just kept coming up, and then I could also picture this woman, this young woman who was like a savage, like not the brightest. And it's okay. So if you are new to this, sometimes when you meditate, sometimes when you're doing things, you have gifts. People have gifts. You have clairvoyance, you have clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, all of those things. They mean different things. They connect to different senses and things like that. But sometimes you can see things, you can hear things, you can feel things. And sometimes you just sense them, you just know them. And so for me, I am still working on figuring out what my gifts are. But I do get a lot of messages. So a lot of times it's normally hearing and just knowing or feeling. I feel like I can connect to all of them, but some of them are stronger than others. So my sense of knowing is very strong, and my sense of feeling is very strong. When I was doing this meditation, I could see her. She was a young woman. You could tell she wasn't the brightest, like as far as smarts, but she was like a person who is a hustler, a person who's gonna get it done, and a very like fend for yourself, like it's me against the world, that's it. And so she's young and savage, exudes confidence despite her shortcomings. So she's a very confident woman. You wouldn't know she wasn't as bright when it comes to knowledge, but she's very confident. She's gonna get her point across. She's that. So I could put a name, I could put a face to it. I knew who this was now, and it all came back to me. I was like, okay, so that's where this is coming from. She gets what she wants. Your shadows are going to they prevent you from getting the things that you want. So, this is going to be a one that I know I'm going to get somebody saying something about. But vision boards. Okay, a lot of people love vision boards. They work for some, they don't work for others. Vision boards is a very big thing now. So, with a vision board, that inner voice, that intuition is going to map out what is going to be your reality. So, if you are doing vision boards, you're seeing these things every day. You're trying to train your mind, as most people say. Train your mind to get these things. Train your mind to think that you own these, to think that you know. You're trying to trick your mind, basically. You're trying to trick your mind into thinking that, oh, well, this is what she has. This is what she has, by seeing it every day. However, if you have shadows and that intuition on the inside, and you have shadows that are kind of second guessing what you're already trying to put in your mind. So you can say, I am confident, I am confident, I am confident, I am confident, I am confident every morning, 5 times every morning. But if you have a shadow in you that hurts your confidence, or is telling you like, oh, but are you really confident? No, you're not that confident. Then it kind of just goes against each other, and it's kind of like going back and forth. So your shadows will fight and prevent you from manifesting your desires or setting your intentions and manifesting those. It can definitely slow you down when it comes to that practice. So Effie, what she did for me is she would constantly make me second guess myself. And we can realize ourselves second guessing ourselves, but it's like, why am I second guessing myself? This is what I want. I really am confident. I want to be confident. But for some reason you keep second guessing yourself. That is your shadow. That is your shadow coming to you like, oh, but you aren't confident though. But you're not confident. So then you end up being like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm not confident. Okay. So vision boards, like I said, they work for some, but a lot of times if you have shadows that are going against what your vision board is saying, and all your shadows are trying to prevent you from getting to that part or that place where you want to be. So you really have to focus on that and those vision boards, like, you can see it all day, every day, but if you're not really working on yourself internally, how can you exude the things that you want externally? So how do you play the victim? Now, your shadow, like I said, it will show you things that you don't want to see. When I started doing shadow work, something I did not want to acknowledge, I did not want to go through, is where do you play the victim? Because you don't want to admit that you're playing the victim. You don't want to admit that you want this pity, or you are using this to get people to feel some type of way. And for me, I was like, oh, I don't do that. I'm not a victim. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. But in reality, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be open. I'm going to accept this journey, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it how it is set up to do it. So where do you play the victim? When it comes to this, I put, well, I'm a mom. And sometimes victim doesn't mean that you're just blatantly like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But if you're using excuses that really have nothing to do with it, you're playing the victim. And for me, I would be like,
oh, well, I can't go back to school because I'm a mom. I can't go out because I'm a mom. I can't get a break because I'm a mom. I can't have a career because I'm a mom.
Knowing that there are women out there who are single moms with careers, in school, kids, and doing it. There are other people doing these things. Like, why can't you? And that's all I kept asking myself. Like, you see all these other people doing it, so why can't you? You're playing the victim, and you don't want to accept that it's just you fighting yourself from becoming what you want to become. That was like I went off on myself in my own mind. I'm like, okay, I get it, I understand, I see what you're saying, and I get it. And after doing this, I was like, I'm not playing the victim no more. I'm not doing this. If I'm not gonna make up excuses of why I can and cannot do things when really it's just me. So I can give an example. I had some issues at an old job with a customer acting inappropriately, so I left that job. And at my new job, there's a customer who is a regular, and he's a nice guy, but he can be a bit uncomfortable for me. And one day, he ended up like grabbing my arm to tell me something, and I like broke down. Like, no shame, this is an open space, so I'm cool with this. I'll let y'all get in on this. But I broke down at work, like crying at work, because it brought back all the memories from my old job, because I ran from that. I didn't stay one day more at that place. I was like, nope. And that customer was banned. That customer can no longer go there. But I was so triggered by that I was like, nope, gotta go. So I left, and I found a job right away at another place, thinking like, okay, well, I'm out of there, so it's not gonna bother me anymore. I'm over it. I don't have to face it anymore. But then when this happened, I got triggered again, and I was like, okay, now you need to face this instead of running from it, which is what most of us do when we don't want to face something. We run from it. I broke down. Managers was like, what's going on? Because I hadn't told anybody but one manager, so she knew what was going on, and I let her know. And I broke down. Like, I couldn't focus. My anxiety, like I said, I have issues with my anxiety. I am still working on it, but my anxiety got so high, like I couldn't focus. I couldn't like count. I was nervous. I was crying. I was emotional. Everything at work, and nobody knows what's going on. So I'm just standing there crying, looking like okay, what's going on? So after doing my shadow work and really facing that, because I knew that was something I had to face, and I had to figure out why it was so traumatic for me. So it did go stem back to things back in my childhood and things like that. That was a whole nother time when I did shadow work. And so what I got from it is that, like I said, I had to face it. And I already said that I'm a very submissive person. I don't like to speak up sometimes for myself. But after doing shadow work, I was like, you have to speak up for yourself. Like I said, I found my voice. And so the next time that the customer was there, I was just like, look, you are a nice man. You are a great customer. But just don't touch me. It makes me uncomfortable. I wasn't rude or anything. I was just like, it makes me uncomfortable. And I just wanted to have open communication and let you know that. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Things like that. And I don't even, after that, I didn't even realize why I was so nervous to do that in the first place. But I was, because it was fear. It was the anxiety, the fear of like, well, what is he gonna say? What is he gonna say? But it was the total opposite. I was talking myself out of it. I was making myself run. And after that, I felt so relieved. I felt like I don't have to worry every 5 seconds. And we live in a society now where women have to, we can't go anywhere by ourselves. We can't do anything by ourselves. So there's still that anxiety there. But it feels so good to be able to just speak my truth and get that off my chest. So that was the shadow work, and I can definitely let you know I've already talked about a lot of how it has changed my journey and how it has helped me. But also it's going to be different for everybody. Like I said, if you have more questions about shadow work, you can definitely message me on Facebook at Beautifully Grounded, or on Instagram at Grounded Beautifully. Definitely check out the Woo Collective. I will give more information if you need that through either of those social media platforms. I hope you enjoyed. Like always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, and I would love feedback. Any interaction is great. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and like always, make today beautiful and stay grounded.